the structure deck called Warrior's Triumph. It's part of the official structure deck which was released by Konami back in 2006. It goes alongside structure decks such as Fury from the Deep, which is the previous incarnation, which was the water attribute support. You also had one which was for fire attribute, you had one which is zombies, and you had one which was dragons called Dragon's Roar. Mighty warriors await your commands in the newest structure deck. Summon your army and equip them with magical swords to wage epic battles in your duels. Warrior's Triumph is ready to play with out of the box and is perfect for new duelists and is packed with powerful cards. Each deck contains 40 cards, including 3 brand new cards and an ultra rare Guildford the Legend. Also included involves the rulebook, game mat, and a dueling guide, which assists duelists in improving and perfecting their deck strategies. So as you can see, this is the main cover card, which is Guildford the Legend, and we will be reviewing each of these particular cards. The deck features warrior type monsters and such as Guildford the Legend, Command Knight, and Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. The Let's Power Up this deck with booster packs supplement suggests combining this deck with Elemental Hero Bubbleman from Cybernetic Revolution, Mystic Swordsman level 6 from Rise of Destiny, Elemental Hero Avian, Elemental Hero Flame Wingman, Hero Signal, and Elemental Hero Burst Intrix from the Lost Millennium, and Zombira the Dark, Blade Knight, Freed the Matchless General, and Fusion Gate, all which existed from Dark Beginning 2. Its official release, as you can see, in Japan was on the June 16, 2005, but if you're more looking towards the European markets, you're looking at October 28th, 2005. So without further ado, we will start reviewing the particular cards. Guildford the Legend is a Earth Attribute Warrior type level 8 with 2000 attack, 600 attack points and 2000 defense points. It cannot be special summoned. When this card is normal summoned, you can equip as many equip spell cards from your graveyard as possible to a warrior type monster you control. This card has seen play within Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. It was used in Season 2. It was used by a wannabe new style type of player from Obelisk Blue. He was facing off, I think his name was Reggie, and he was facing off against Chaz Princeton. And if Chaz won, he had the ability to increase the Dorm from his Slifer Red to Ra Yellow. And if Reggie won, then he gained the status from winning against Chaz Princeton. He was a spoilt rich kid and very much used the warrior types, throwing a lot of the equipped cards such as Divine Sword Phoenix Blade, Great Sword, and there are a couple of other ones, Lightning Blade, were all thrown into the graveyard whilst equipped with other warrior type monsters. And once this card was eventually summoned, all of those cards were then equipped onto this monster and was used to beat over a lot of Chaz's monsters. The good thing about this card is it can equip as many different equip spell cards from the graveyard to a warrior type monster, so it doesn't have to be itself, it could be other monsters. And with the number of different equip spell cards that currently exist, it's become much more powerful. At the time it was around, I mean, you didn't have too many cards out there. I think Megamorph and a couple of other cards like that. You do have some better incarnations now with Power of the, I think there's a couple of Mage Power, for example, United We Stand. Those are a couple of the examples you can give. And I'm sure there are plenty of others that are awaiting your disposal. Arm Changer was another example. It was a good way of reallocating your resources to recover your monsters if you beat over a certain monster of a certain attack points. Next card we'll be looking at is Warrior Lady of the Wasteland. I'll be somewhere down here. Yeah, that's it. Warrior Lady of the Wasteland. This card is an Earth Attribute Warrior type level 4 with 1100 attack and 1200 defense. The effect is, when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Earth attribute warrior type monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck in attack position. This is just one of those recovery style of cards. It's similar to something like Mystic Tomato or Giant Rats, the difference being that it's specifically for warrior type monsters as opposed to attributes, which makes it more specific for a deck, but just as easy to recover into whatever monster you need. Often it would be used as just part of either thinning your deck, or it could be used as part of a tribute to perhaps go into something like Freed the Matchless General. So we'll be covering Darkblade. Darkblade is a Dart attribute level 4 warrior type monster with 1800 attack points and 1500 defense points. They say he is a dragon manipulating warrior from the Dark World. His attack is tremendous, using his great swords with vicious power. Now, considering that this is a normal type monster, it doesn't have any effects, but it has 1800 attack points. For a level 4, it's quite decent, and with some of the other examples given previously, with like Fury of the Deep, they do have 1800/1900 beat sticks somewhere within those decks, and so that's the equivalent for the warrior type structure deck. The next card we'll be looking at will be the Goblin Attack Force. Goblin... Is it Goblin Elite Attack Force? No, it's Goblin Attack Force. There's a couple of iterations of the Goblin monsters. So, yeah, that's how powerful they can be sometimes. Yeah, this is it. It's an Earth Attribute Warrior type level 4 with 2300 attack points and 0 defense points. If this card attacks, it is changed to defense position at the end of the battle phase, and its battle position cannot be changed until the end phase of your next turn. The good thing about this card is it's a 2300 attack point beat stick. Considering at the time this card was released and the set was released back in 2005, it was perfect for what it needs to be. It was powerful enough to beat over your opponents, whilst not requiring a tribute to bring it out. The downside is it has to stay in defense position until the end phase of your next turn, which means you're having to wait on this card for 2 turns, and you would need something as a form of protection, for example a Swords of Revealing Light, a Negate Attack, Wabuku, any of those types of cards to help preserve this monster before you can get it back into attack position. It was seen within the anime. I believe it was used by Joey Wheeler, and this was a duel against Duke Devlin. That was when he was being humiliated and then forced to wear a dog suit. That was the bet if he lost. We'll move on to Gearfried the Iron Knight. Gearfried the Iron Knight. I'm sure this is quite popular with a lot of players, and there's actually quite a few different articles relating to this card. That's interesting. That's quite a difficult search for it. If we can't find it here, I'm going to search for it elsewhere. Yeah, it's had quite a lot of searching, so I'm going to actually just bring that up now. Gearfried the Iron Knight. And here we go. This is an Earth Attribute Warrior type level 4 with 1800 attack points and 1600 defense points. The effect is if either player equips an equip card to this card, destroy that equip card. It's a very niche type of effect. I mean, most occasions you aren't really going to have your opponent equip cards onto this card, unless it's something like Germ Infection or something that has a negative effect to it. And it's very restrictive for what it needs to be. It was a classic card that was used by Joey Wheeler within the anime, but it was used in quite a few duels. It was used against, in Battle City by Joey against Weevil Underwood. It was also used, I think, against Marek Ishtar in the semi-final round. And in which case, I think at that point, if he was able to summon it, but because he'd been struck down by the Winged Dragon of Ra, if he had actually been able to successfully get off the attack, he would have beaten Marek with this card. Swift Gaia, the Fierce Knight. Hopefully this one will be easier to find. But saying so, there are quite a few different variations on Gaia. So he's not always the most searchable of... There we go. Swift Gaia, the Fierce Knight. This is a Dart Attribute level 7 warrior type monster with 2,300 attack points and 2,100 defense points. Its effect is if this card is the only card in your hand, you can normal summon it without tributing. Most people aren't going to remember whether this card actually was used within the anime. It turns out it actually was. It's not through any of my own research, but actually I remember it being used. This was used against one of the big five, the one that Yugi faced off against. And he had to summon it at the end of the duel because he had no other cards in his hand. He was just able to instantly summon it. And he used the effect of his Deckmaster's ability. It was the Karibo, which allowed him to attack directly with Swift Gaia. Other than that very brief history within the anime, I don't think he actually ever used it beyond that. It's just another iteration of Gaia the Fierce Knight, just without the summoning condition requirement, which is normally 2 tributes. In other words, it's just a normal monster that's slightly been improved. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's awful, I just don't think it's relevant for now. Okay, so Obnoxious Celtic Guardian is the next card we're going to be searching through. That's the anime, this is the normal one. This is like Swift Gaia, an upgrade to the original, considering that was just a normal monster. This is Obnoxious Celtic Guardian. It's an Earth Attribute Warrior type level 4 with 1400 attack points and 1200 defense points. Its effect is it cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster that has 1900 or more attack points. It can be quite useful if your opponent is going into very high attack monsters, especially if your monster is, for example, if you have this face down and your opponent's just attacking with big monsters, then it's not going to be able to likely destroy this monster during that turn. It gives you another turn for you to either tribute over this card or to actually boost this card to over 1900. The interesting thing about this card is if you can actually do that, you can prevent it from actually ever being destroyed in battle because its effect will protect itself. It is a requirement that you are going to have to rely on using various equip cards to boost it beyond that point, but it's definitely decent for what it was, and it was an upgrade considering that the original Celtic Guardian, like I said before, it's just a normal monster, it doesn't have any effects to its name. This card is Command Knight. It's a fire attribute warrior type level 4 with 1200 attack points and 1900 defense points. The effect is all warrior type monsters you control gain 400 attack points. If you control another monster, monsters your opponent controls cannot target this card for an attack. This instantly just gives all of your warrior type monsters, including itself, 400 additional attack points. So this instantly starts off with 1600 attack points unless its effect is negated. If you happen to have, say, a couple of these on the field, it happens the same way as a couple of other cards. I think there is the Solar Flare Dragon that has a similar ability, where if you have two of those monsters on the field, neither of those monsters can be attacked. Same thing applies with this. So you can create a loop. If you have all three of these cards on the field, then this card becomes a 2400 attack monster and it boosts all other warrior type monsters by 1200 each. So if you've got a full field of 5 monsters, that's an extra 6000 points of damage you could potentially do to your opponent. It's also quite decent as a set and pass style of effect, considering 1900 is a decent level for 2005 standards. It cannot be overcome by your opponent that quickly, and at the very least it might do some reflect damage to your opponent. Marauding Captain is an Earth Attribute Warrior type level 3 with 1200 attack points and 400 defense points. Its effect is your opponent cannot target warrior monsters for attacks except this one. When this card is normal summoned, you can special summon one level 4 or lower monster from your hand. Similar to Command Knight, but in this case it actually focuses the attack on itself. That could be just as useful because if you've got multiple of this card already on the field, then actually it becomes an attack loop. It prevents your opponent from attacking into any of your monsters. It does have that kind of restriction on it that, like any of them, if their effects are negated, you can just break this chain. But it can actually special summon itself through its ability, not having to wait for multiple forms of summoning. I can't remember whether Ultimate Offering was legal at the time, but if it was, then that would have been quite effective as part of the strategy of bringing out multiple monsters. It's not that powerful a card. 1200 attack points is nothing that devastating even at that point. It was used in the anime. I think it was in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 1, and it was against Chaz. He had to face off against 4 of the top students from the North Academy. And these were all, I think, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th rank. Those were the ones he faced all off at the same time. They all summoned into their Marauding Captains through all of their effects, and they used the Allied Forces, which boosted their monsters' attack points by 200 times the number of warrior-type monsters on the field. Chaz used, I think, Gyaku Panda, which gains 500 attack points for each Marauding Captain, well, for each monster on your opponent's side of the field. I think he used Ring of Destruction as well in combination, and Ring of Defense. Ring of Defense was to protect his own life points, and Ring of Destruction was to destroy the panda to inflict that level of damage to the opponent, which was, I believe, above 4,000, so it just wiped out each of the opponents. This is a very iconic card because it does get featured in quite a lot of card artwork, and I'm sure even if you haven't really seen this card, you kind of know what it does. Exiled Force is an Earth Attribute Warrior type level 4 with 1000 attack points and 1000 defense. The effect is you contribute this card to target one monster on the field and destroy that target. It's just a blanket way of getting rid of one of your opponent's very annoying monsters, or even just one of your monsters if it has some sort of destruction based effect. Typically, this is a good way of getting rid of one of your opponent's high resolve, high resource based monsters, ones that needed tributes to bring them out. The only concern about this card is if you've got nothing else on your field to protect your life points, then actually you're wasting your normal summon on this card. You're then exposing your life points to direct attacks. This has probably seen some iteration of play, but it's just not something I think has been seen too heavily from what I can consider the main series. So the next one is DD Warrior Lady. This is a particularly nasty card to face. If you've ever faced it, you kind of know at that point how irritating it was to get rid of. Yeah, so this is DD Warrior Lady. It's a light attribute warrior type level 4 with 1500 attack points and 1600 defense points. Its effect is after damage calculation. When this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that monster, also banish this card. Now, this had a couple of different ways of interacting. You could have had this first set face down, so actually, if your opponent does have a high resource monster, they end up attacking over this, gets destroyed. Actually, it's your choice to then banish those two monsters. It's a good way of defeating your opponent. Or you alternatively had the more offensive way, where if you wanted to get rid of a specific threat, you could have this monster just go into battle against your opponent's desired target. The benefit is you get to get rid of that monster. The downside is you lose this monster and you take life point damage, assuming that their monster has higher attack points. So we're looking at for Matasar the Zapper, wherever that is. It was used, I don't think it was used in anything. It might have been used in one of these niche Yu-Gi-Oh series. It's a Dark Attribute Warrior type level 3 with 1300 attack points and 800 defense points. Its effect is this card can make a second attack during each battle phase, and control of this face-up card on the field cannot switch. This is a very weak card, but it does have some reasons to be used. So if you equip a certain number of cards to it and make it more powerful, it's a good way of getting a lot more damage in. You can either go in for direct attacks because it doesn't say specifically on monsters, whereas some cards do. It doesn't have to attack twice in a row, so if you attack once, your opponent uses something like Call of the Haunted to bring out a stronger monster, you can negate your own attack. Use another monster if you've got another monster that's more powerful than the monster they revived, and then go in for this card's second attack. It's more functional that way than a lot of the other cards which are restricted to being attacks in a row. The other part of the effect, control of the card cannot be switched. It's neither here nor there. I mean, it's a nice little side effect to it, but if you were to ask certain people about whether it's useful or whether they've used it before, I'm going to say no, they probably don't use it or even are aware of that additional effect to it. Mystic Swordsman at level 2. This is an Earth Attribute level 2 warrior type monster with 900 attack points and 0 defense. The effect is at the start of the damage step, if this card attacked a face down defense position monster, destroy that monster. During the end phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle this turn, you can send this face up card to the graveyard, special summon 1 Mystic Swordsman level 4 from your hand or deck. The benefit of this card is it's a good way of just instantly removing your opponent's defensive monsters, provided that they are face down. That's also part of its limitation, that it has to be face down in defense position, as sometimes you might have accidentally attacked into a monster, it had been too strong, and it then remains in defense position, but face up. The other concern is it To level itself up, you do have to destroy a monster in battle, and with 900 attack points, that's going to be quite difficult, unless you are prepared to give out certain numbers of equipped spells to boost this up to the point where you can actually successfully special summon. The benefit is it can special summon both from either the hand or the deck for the level 4 version, so at least in that way, you know, if it ends up in your hand, that's not a problem because you can just special summon it from there, or you can thin your deck by special summoning from that position as well. Mystic Swordsman at level 4 is a Earth Attribute Warrior type level 4 monster with 1900 attack points and 1600 defense points. It cannot be normal summoned but can be normal set. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacked a face down defense position monster, destroy that monster. During the end phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle this turn, you can send this face up card to the graveyard, special summon one Mystic Swordsman at level 6 from your hand or deck. This is the reason why Mystic Swordsman level 2 is necessary to bring this card out, because traditionally this card would have to be set face down first, and then flipped over your next turn to be in attack position, so it's a 2-turn kind of phasing for it, whereas if you do this through the effect of Mystic Swordsman level 2, it's a special summon and therefore doesn't need to meet that specific requirement. It does have the same effect as Mystic Swordsman level 2, but with 1900 attack points it's going to be easier to destroy a monster by battle to upgrade itself into the Mystic Swordsman at level 6. Mystic Swordsman level 6 is an Earth Attribute Warrior type level 6 monster with 2300 attack points and 1700 defense points. It cannot be normal summoned but can be normal set. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacked a face down defense position monster, destroy that monster. And if you do, you can place it on top of your opponent's deck instead of sending it to the graveyard. This, like the other two, well, like the level 4 version, it cannot be normal summoned, it has to be normal set, so you can technically tribute over a monster to set this card, and then flip summon it the next turn. Again, it takes 2 turns to do, so that's a bit of an issue. The ability to attack and destroy a monster that's face down, it's perfectly fine, but it gives it the additional benefit of sending it back to the top of your opponent's deck, so you can put them continually in a position where they're top decking a useless card and putting them in a position where they may not have the necessary cards to overwhelm yourself or to draw in to, you know, actually benefit their position. Overall, I think that is a decent monster. I mean, it's okay, but I just noticed on here it's actually not featured within the set itself, so that's my bad, but I don't understand why you'd have the level 4 version and not the level 6 version as well, so that's quite a strange interaction that I wasn't aware of. I would have assumed all 3 would have been in there. Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke. This is a light attribute level 4 warrior type monster. It has 1800 attack points and 1000 defense points. The effect is at the start of the damage step, if this card attacks a face up defense position monster, destroy that monster. So it's the opposite of Mystic Swordsman, whereas that attacks and destroys instantly face down monsters. This attacks face up defense position monsters. It's a decent effect, it's just a good way of wiping out your opponent's high defensive walls. Of course, to get them into face-up defense position, sometimes you do have to take some sort of reflect damage to do that. And again, this is one of those 2-stage type of effects. The only benefit is this being 1800 attack points means that at the time it's definitely easy enough to bring out. It's not so much of a risk in trying to protect itself. Right, so we're now looking for Gearfried the Swordmaster. This is a light attribute warrior type level 7 monster with 2,600 attack points and 2,200 defense points. It cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by release restraint, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. When an equip card is equipped to this card, target one monster your opponent controls, destroy that target. The benefit of this card is that it is one of the more powerful types of boss monsters that they possess, and it's whenever an equip card is equipped to this card, you can instantly destroy any of your opponent's monsters. This is not a once per turn effect, so as long as you've got equip cards in your hand that you can continue to equip, you can continue to use this effect. It's going to be gaining attack points from those equip cards to it, as well as wiping out your opponent's cards. At that point, there wasn't, I think, sufficient monsters with the ability to protect themselves from being destroyed by card effects to protect them from this effect. The concern about this is it does have to be summoned by release restraint, which in itself has its own restrictions, and I'll just give you a quick spoiler on it as well. It is a spell card, and it's a very specifically worded one. You have to meet certain conditions and would have to run a very gimmicky, nostalgic type of deck in order to get it to work in the first place. And Samurai. Benkei is the card we're looking at now. This is a dark attribute level 4 warrior type monster with 500 attack points and 800 defense points. For each equipped card equipped to this card, it gains 1 additional attack during each battle phase. You may be thinking to yourself, okay, what's the big issue with this? It's just got 500 attack points. That's not the problem. The fact that it can attack multiple times within the turn becomes a problem if the equipped cards then boost this card up. For example, Acts of Despair boosts this by 1,000 attack points. There are other cards with similar levels of boost, which can not only put this card above, say, things such as Blue Eyes White Dragon, but make this significantly more powerful, and adding those additional attacks. If you were to have an additional equip card for each of your spell and trap zones, this card would be able to attack 6 times. The 1 initial attack through its own ability of being just a monster, plus the 5 equipped spells equipped to it. This is a very specific example and has been part of an OTK or 1-turn kill strategy. It does rely on you having to run it second, and it's less consistent now than it ever used to be. Previously, you'd run into things like Sakuretsu Armor, which would then wipe this card out. But now there's a balance. You do have much better equipped cards to protect your monsters, but you also have much more powerful disruptive cards, which can prevent this card from being maxed out in terms of its attack points. This did have, I think, it was seen within Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 2, and it was against this drama being, and it was in this weird kind of GX Medals duel that Jane Yuki had to face. Divine Sword. Divine Sword Phoenix Blade is an equipped spell card. Its effect is equip only to a warrior type monster. It gains 300 attack. During your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can remove from play 2 warrior type monsters in your graveyard to add this card to your hand. The benefit of this is that it does have a reoccurring effect so long as you can remove from play 2 warrior type monsters, which is now known as Banish. You're able to continually revive this. Even though it does give your monster only 300 attack points, it's just constantly being able to reoccur, providing you with that advantage, which puts your opponent at threat. Also consider that it can be used as part of a discard cost. Think of it like Sinister Serpent, but when Sinister Serpent was not restricted by its own errata. So we're going to be looking at Snatch Deal. Snatch Deal is an equipped spell card. Its effect is equip only to a monster your opponent controls. Take control of the equipped monster. During each of your opponent's standby phases, they gain 1,000 life points. The benefit of this is you're able to just steal one of your opponent's monsters, so that's could be one of those high resource monsters that they've had to tribute over to bring out, or it could be something that you can use as part of, if it's a very high resource monster, steal it to use it against your opponent and defeat them with their own monster. It's quite useful for an end of duel type of effect in that you're able to just wipe your opponent out, but keep in mind that the longer this card kind of sticks around, the more likely your opponent's going to be racking up life points. So when using this card, always be mindful of trying to defeat your opponent within that turn or within the next couple of turns. Otherwise, the life point count will just go too extreme for you to actually do anything with. Mystical Space Typhoon is a quick play spell card. Its effect is target one spell or trap card on the field to destroy that target. This can be useful in a couple of different ways. It can be used if your opponent tries to target this face down and then waste their version of a spell or trap destruction effect, such as another MST, or if they use a Dust Tornado or anything equivalent. By doing that, they've actually wasted their card. It can be used to destroy one of your opponent's spell or trap cards that exist on the field, so it could be a continuous spell or trap card, it could be an equip card, or it could be a field spell, for example. Those are the ones that tend to stick around the most. Or it can be used against one of your own spell or trap cards if it has a destroyed by a card effect style of effect, then that effect can also trigger. Keep in mind at that point there weren't too many cards like that already available, and definitely it was more useful for destroying your opponent's cards and surprising them. Although MST is a very simplistic card, most people do predict that you are going to be running it or that they will face it within one of their opponent's decks. Giant Trunade is a normal spell card. Its effect is to return all spell and trap cards on the field to the hand. This is useful if you're trying to go all in for an attack, and a good way of cleaning out your opponent's field from any potential threats such as Sakuretsu Armor, Mirror Force, Mirror Gate. Any of those types of cards were available at the time. Anything that is battle based, or anything that really cannot respond until specific actions are taken. It's just a safety net that you can use, and it's useful to use as part of the... basically you want to use it the first point you can within a turn, so that your opponent doesn't have the opportunity to actually interact with you. It doesn't have the ability to protect itself from things such as Solemn Judgment, which can negate this effect, but it's also a good way of baiting out your opponent's Solemn-based cards or other protection cards if that's what you're thinking of doing. Lightning Blade is an equipped spell card. Its effect is equip only to a warrior monster. It gains 800 attack points. All water attribute monsters on the field lose 500 attack points. This can be used full for a couple of different reasons. The 800 attack point boost is always useful, and it can be equipped to any of your warrior type monsters, so long as you're running a warrior style of deck, this is perfectly useful. It can be used if your opponent is using a water attribute deck as a way of countering them, because it reduces their attack points by 500. So if in the best situation you could be doing 1300 attack points more damage than you could think of. It's also not mutually exclusive. You could, for example, have a water attribute warrior type monster. So in that case, it would actually only gain a 300 attack point boost, as it will gain the 800, but it will subtract the 500 because the water attributes assigned to it. An example of this would be something like Elemental Hero Bubble Man, which meets that requirement, but I'm sure you can think of in the comments something a lot more effective than that. Heavy Storm is a normal spell card. Its effect is to destroy all spell and trap cards on the field. This has seen a lot of play. It was incredibly powerful at different points. If you had very few or no spell or trap cards on the field and your opponent had many, it would be a good way of just wiping them out. Alternatively, you could use it a bit like how Dr. Velian Crowler used it in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 1, Episode 1, where he was facing off against Jane Yuki. He had already set 2 cards face down, activated his Heavy Storm to destroy Jane's, I think it was a Mirror Gate trap card in his spell and trap zone, as well as 2 copies of Tribute to the Wicked, which, when destroyed by any card effects, enable him to summon up to 2 Wicked tokens, which have 1000 attack and defense points. They were used as tributes to then bring out his Ancient Gear Golem. There are alternative ways of using this card, and the more inventive you can be, it's always more ideal. So now we're looking for reinforcement of the army. It's teched into so many different warrior style of decks, so it's actually very useful for it. But you've got different iterations of the card that just missed it. So reinforcement of the army, it's also referred to as rota, which is just the lazy way of actually assigning it. So if you've ever heard that term, that's what that is. It's a normal spell card with the effect add 1 level 4 or lower warrior type monster from your deck to your hand. This is consistent for any warrior type decks, so long as they want low level monsters, and it can get you anything within that requirement. It doesn't need to be specific to an attribute, anything with certain defense or attack stat alongside it. So long as it meets the level 4 or lower, it's perfectly fine. This has been used just generally for benefiting all sorts of decks, from things such as you've got the 6 Samurai deck, you've got some of Joe Wheeler's cards, they also meet that type of requirement. You've got Gokis that get that benefit. The more warrior type archetypes there are, the more supported this card becomes for them. The Warrior Returning Alive is a normal spell card. Its effect is to target 1 warrior type monster in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. It's a very simple effect. It's a bit like Monster Reincarnation without the discard. It's specific to warrior type monsters, so provided you've got those in your graveyard, you can just access one of them. It's quite a weak card in that it doesn't really do anything with it. If you are Having something like a level 4 or lower monster that doesn't require a tribute to bring out, perfectly acceptable, perfectly fine. If it's a level 5 or higher, it's not going to be useful because it's stuck in your hand until you're able to tribute to bring those cards out. It's not particularly useful, and as, again, looking at 2005, probably was useful at that point. I know Monster Reincarnation was available at the time, but it would have been a specific warrior type alternative. So now we're going to be looking at the Fusion Sword Murasame Blade. This is an equipped spell card with the effect: equip only to a warrior type monster, it gains 800 attack points while equipped to a monster. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects. So actually, when useful against some of your opponent's cards, is a good way of protecting the monster you have, because your opponent has to use and destroy your monster before they can actually target this card. Its benefit from being protected from cards such as Mystical Space Typhoon and Dust Tornado, but again, it just makes the monster that it's equipped to the bigger target for your opponent's attacks. Wicked Breaking Flamberg Bow is a equipped spell card. Its effect is: send one card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one monster on the field, equip this card to that target. It gains 500 attack points. Negate the effects of opponent's monsters destroyed by battle with the equipped monster. This is part of the Guardian series of cards. Bow is actually a monster that gains, I think, 1,000 attack points every time it destroys a monster in battle. So essentially, if you can actually use this effect as well, that's gaining another 500 attack points. It can be equipped to any monster, it's not specific to your warrior type monsters, so that's a benefit. It does come at the cost of sending one of your cards from the hand to the graveyard, so that's an additional discard on that. But you have the benefit, if you happen to be successful in destroying your opponent's monsters by battle, to just be able to shut down their effects. This was used by Reggie as part of his duel against Chaz Princeton in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 2. Fairy of the Spring is a normal spell card. Its effect is to target one equipped spell card in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. That equipped spell card cannot be activated this turn. This is just a way of recovering your equipped spell cards from the graveyard. The only downside is, of course, you can't activate it during the turn, and if your opponent is able to know kind of what you're bringing back, they're going to be able to, on their next turn, plan to deal with it. Reload is a quick play spell card. With the effect, add all cards in your hand to your deck and shuffle it, then draw the same number of cards that you added to your deck. This is very similar to Magical Mallet, which is a newer version of the card, and that was used by Chaz Princeton. That effect does the same thing, it's just a normal spell card rather than a quick play. The benefit this card has over that one is this can be activated during either yours or your opponent's turn. So, for example, it can be used as spell and trap card destruction bait. So if you set it and your opponent uses something like Mystical Space Typhoon or Dust Tornado to wipe this card out, just respond by this. You can actually just get the specific cards that you need. The downside of this is Magical Mallet gives you the selection effect, so you can choose the cards that you want to send back to the deck and redraw. This sends everything back, so if you've got a couple of good cards in your hand, you're sacrificing those in order and hoping for bringing back, something actually quite decent. The other benefit is, of course, if you've got just a bad hand, it just gives you a redo. You're able to then justify and go into whatever you hopefully can draw into. Lightning Vortex is a normal spell card. Its effect is to discard one card, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. It does have a discard cost, and at one point when Raigeki was banned, this was the kind of substitute to it. The difference between Raigeki and this card is Raigeki just destroys everything on your opponent's field, be it face-up, face-down, whatever, and there aren't any costs to it. This requires a discard cost, so instantly, by that effect, it's a weaker version of that card. It may look and try and act similar, but it's a lot worse, as it's only all face-up monsters the opponent controls. If they're running a very defensive deck, what do? Do you attack over each of their monsters whilst in defense mode, just to get them to be revealed, take loads of damage, and then activate this during your main phase 2? Or do you have to just essentially wait for your opponent to then flip those monsters into either face-up attack position, or at least do something so as those monsters in defense position become face-up? I just missed it there. That was Swords of Concealing a Light. This is a continuous spell card. Its effect is destroy this card during your second standby phase after activation. When this card resolves, change all monsters your opponent controls to face down defense position. Monsters your opponent controls cannot change their battle position. This is similar in some respect to Swords of Revealing Light. The only difference is this doesn't prevent your opponent from attacking into your monsters, simply because they can then, on their next turn, summon monsters to be in attack position and then to attack. It does restrict the other monsters they have, but the thing is, if they've got monsters that they can just tribute over to bring something else out, they're probably going to do that rather than wait the two full turns, to have this card destroy itself. You also have to consider that it is quite limited, and at the time it was quite useful, but Swords of Revealing Light was probably already a better version without needing this kind of retrain. Release Restraint is a normal spell card. Its effect is to tribute 1 Gearfried, the Iron Knight, special summon 1 Gearfried, the Swordsmaster from your hand or deck. This is a card I was referring to earlier, which is a pain to bring out, because initially you need Gearfried, the Iron Knight, already on the field or in your hand so that you can summon it to then trigger off this effect. It's needed in a very specific type of deck. The only thing I'd say that's kind of going for this is that it at least lets you summon Gearfried the Swordsmaster from the hand or the deck, not specifically from either. Because the issue is, if it's solely exclusively from the deck and you only have one in the deck and you've drawn into your hand, that's where you wouldn't have been able to summon it, and vice versa if it's exclusive to the hand. Alright, so here we're looking for Call of the Haunted. But it's a very commonly used card in a lot of different structure decks, so it might be having to search for the specific one. Hopefully it's not the case, but you know how it is. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to just search for that. Call of the Haunted. Yugioh, Call of the Haunted. And here we go. It's a continuous trap card, and its effect is activate this card by targeting one monster in your graveyard. Special summon that target in attack position. When this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. When that monster is destroyed, destroy this card. The benefit of this card is it's able to revive one of your monsters during your next turn, or during your opponent's turn, whenever you prefer. It does have the weakness of, since it's part of it's a continuous trap, if this card gets destroyed, your monster that you summon through this card's effect then goes back to the graveyard, and vice versa. If that monster is destroyed in any way, this card goes to the graveyard. There's an interesting interaction with this card and the monster that's actually summoned through it. If that monster happens to be sent anywhere that isn't a destruction-based effect, so if it's not destroyed by card effect or destroyed by battle, if it's sent somewhere or banished, this card actually stays on the field, Call of the Haunted. And that's where the irritation comes, because it's just using up your spell and trap zone, and it's not actually giving you any benefit. This has been used in various duels. It has been used by so many different characters. Most famously, you've got Bones, but he kind of used it in a weird way. I mean, they had a very strange way of using it in the original series of Yugioh. It was very much that Call of the Haunted could revive any zombie monster, and those zombie monsters would remain constantly on the field. Even when they're destroyed, they bring themselves back, and they boost themselves up by 10% of their attack points. It was a weird gimmick they had with that card. It would be too much to kind of assume for having anything like that currently or now. So we're just going to be looking at what the next card is when that card comes up. Magic Jammer. Next one is Magic Jammer. Magic Jammer is a counter trap card, and its effect is when a spell card is activated, discard one card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. This is a very useful counter trap card as it just negates any spell cards that are activated, so it could be ritual spells, could be field spells, continuous spells, equipped spells, normal spells, anything you like, so long as it's a spell card, it can be negated. Does come at the cost of a discard, but it's an okay type of effect, and it does protect itself from being pretty much negated from other cards. Royal Decree is a continuous trap card with the effect negate all other trap effects on the field. This was useful at a point where you were winning the duel and could almost guarantee sealing off the duel against your opponent, because not only were you negating your trap cards, but you were shutting down your opponent's. That's a third of your opponent's resources that cannot be effectively used. It's a good way of protecting your life points. And it puts you in a position where things such as Mirror Force, Sakuretsu Armor, any type of traps are negated from using their abilities. This has been on and off the ban list, but given the situation at the time, it probably was ban-worthy and at least needed limitations. Nowadays, it wouldn't be so relevant. Now we're going to be looking for Blast with Chain. This is a normal trap card, and its effect is target one face-up monster you control, equip this card to that target. It gains 500 attack points. If this card is destroyed by a card effect while equipped, target one card on the field, destroy that target. Initially, this card provides a 500 attack point boost, which isn't bad given the point we are within Yu-Gi-Oh! At that stage in 2005. The downsides of that is that it doesn't get its destruction-based effect unless it happens to be directly threatened by card effect, and your opponent isn't going to do that. They're going to most likely want to run over your monster first, and that way you never actually get to trigger off this effect. The destruction effect is useful because it can be used on spell traps or monsters, but unlikely to be used unless, for example, you trigger off that effect yourself. Now we're going to be looking at the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card market to see what these cards are worth. It's always nice to kind of get a feel for how relevant these cards are and where they kind of sit within the market. It's just nice to kind of examine what they're worth and what people are willing to spend on them. So that's just coming up now, as you can see. And we'll start off with Guilford the Legend. So that's structure deck 5. I'll just move the camera down so you guys can see the graph. And here we are. There's apparently a couple of other reprint sets for it. There's 1,648 of these cards available, starting at 2 cents, a price trend of 11 cents, 30-day average of 34 cents, 7-day average of 22 cents, and a 1-day average price of 34 cents. Maximum price was sold on the 15th of December for €2.99. It's not a card I would consider picking up. For its rarity, maybe I could justify it being an ultra rare, and since there's only other couple of cards, it might be worth it, but I would hope that it would have to be very high-end, near mint, for me to go anywhere near that pricing. Warrior Lady of the Wasteland. And you want the SD5 version. So there are another 4 different copies, reprint sets. 949 of these available, starting at 2 pence. There's 9 cents as a price trend, 30-day average of 11 cents, 7-day average price of 13 cents, and a 1-day average of 2 cents. Its highest price came on the 25th of November for 39 cents. I think it's reasonable considering the pricing markets, and if you're really wanting to run a warrior style of deck, it's always useful for that ends. It's not bad, I just don't think I would personally pay that much for it. Next card is Darkblade. We want SD5, that's it. So there are 13 different reprint sets on it. There are 838 of these cards currently available, starting at 2 cents. And the price trend is also matching at 2 cents. 30-day average of 7 cents, a 7-day average of 3 cents, and a 1-day average of 2 cents. Its highest, someone bought it on the 28th of May for 49 cents. I think that's overpricing on it. And unless you're getting it, pristine condition, I wouldn't go anywhere near that. I'd be looking around the 30 cents mark, at a push 40 cents if it's of the correct quality. Goblin Attack Force. So there are 16 different reprint sets on this and 812 of these copies available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 11 cents, 30-day average of 14 cents, a 7-day average of 9 cents, and a 1-day average of 8 cents. Its highest purchase was on the 6th of December for 49 cents. I don't think it's too unreasonable, given I know it's not particularly that rare, it's a common card, but it can be useful for a particular type of deck if you're wanting to run it. There is a trap card called Prepared for Attack, which gives you the opportunity of switching monsters that have these type of effects back into attack position. But it would be a very niche type of deck if you were ever running it. I mean, this would include Giant Orc would be another example of a card that would benefit from that trap card. Destiny Hero Dasher would benefit from that, and there's a few other ones out there. Indomitable Fighter Lele, there's another example. I'm really testing my Yugioh knowledge here. It's quite a few examples there. Gearfried the Iron Knight. The SD5 version is this one. This one, there are 20 different reprint sets, and of this, just on this standard alone, it's 1,595, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 15 cents, 30-day average price of 9 cents, a 7-day average of 21 cents, and a 1-day average of 10 cents. Its highest purchase was on the 9th of January for 37 cents. I don't think that's too unreasonable, given it's an okay beatstick style of monster. I wouldn't turn it down for that type of pricing. Swiftguy the Fierce Knight. This has 10 different reprint sets on it, available 705 items from 2 cents, price trend of 9 cents, 30-day average price of 9 cents, a 7-day of 9 cents, and a 1-day average of 13 cents. Its highest purchase was made on the 3rd of January for 30 cents, which I think is perfectly reasonable for the pricing on it. Obnoxious Celtic Guardian. There are 8 different reprints on this set. There are 663 of these copies available, starting at 2 cents, a price trend of 19 cents, 30-day average price of 17 cents, 7-day average price of 17 cents, and a 1-day average of 19 cents. This had 2 days where it's particularly high, so you had the 10th of December, which was 74 cents, and there was the 4th of November at 75 cents. I think that's a bit too expensive. I wouldn't really be going for anything more than 50 cents, and that's assuming it's kind of at the higher end of the quality scale. Command Knight. That's not how you spell knight, that's it. Command Knight has 11 different versions of it, and there are 801 of these cards available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 7 cents. It's 30-day average price of 12 cents, 7-day average price of 8 cents, and a 1-day average of 4 cents. At its highest, someone purchased this on the 27th of September for 50 cents. Arguably, I can see that's reasonable, considering that there's so many different warrior-type decks, that it's definitely useful within something, even if you have to pay a little above and beyond the kind of base standards for it. Marauding Captain. There are 15 different versions of this card, and there are 1,992 copies on this available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 11 cents, 30-day average price of 11 cents, a 7-day average of 13 cents, and a 1-day average of 5 cents. At its height, someone purchased this on the 1st of January at 49 cents. I think that's reasonable enough. It's okay for pricing. XL Force has 14 different reprints on this, starting at, well, it has 704 of these available, starting at 2 cents, with a price trend of 7 cents, 30-day average price of 24 cents, a 7-day average of 9 cents, and a 1-day average of 10 cents. Someone purchased this on the 25th of November for €1.51, which I think is just extreme. I don't think I'd ever purchase anything for that type. It's not worth the pricing on that. Yeah, I wouldn't waste my money on bothering with anything that's going to be pricing at that level for a card that you can instantly pick up. DD Warrior Lady. That's it, so SD5, as we can see. There are 17 different versions of this card, and there are 719 of these specific set available, starting at 2 cents, with a price trend of 20 cents, 30-day average price of 21 cents, a 7-day average price of 20 cents, and a 1-day average price of 18 cents. At its height, it was purchased on the 13th of December at 99 cents, and the 17th of December for the same price. If you're going to be running this in any sort of deck, I think maybe €1 is acceptable, just because you know, if you're running it for specific needs, but I would want a higher quality product. I wouldn't want anything that's damaged. Mataz's the Zapper. This has 6 different reprints on it, and there are 758 of these cards available, starting at 2 cents, with a price trend of 10 cents, 30-day average price of 15 cents, a 7-day average of 7 cents, and a 1-day average of 2 cents. At its height, someone purchased this on the 3rd of December for 90 cents. I think that's too excessive. I wouldn't really be prepared to spend anything more than 50 cents. Especially since, unless you're planning to build that OTK type of warrior deck, it's just not worth the cost. Mystic Swordsman at level 2, so we're going to be looking at this. There are 4 different reprint sets on this, and there are 256 copies of this card available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 51 cents, 30-day average price of 63 cents, a 7-day average of 59 cents, and a 1-day average of 2 cents. At its height, someone purchased this on the 20th of December for €2.52. Definitely too excessive. I don't know who would be buying that at that price, unless someone was probably getting their parents to buy it and weren't aware of the pricing markets, or I just, no way would I be paying that. Mystic Swordsman at level 4. This one, there are 4 different reprint sets. There are 965 of these cards available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 18 cents. The 30-day average price is 12 cents, a 7-day average price of 23 cents, and a 1-day average of 5 cents. At its height, this received more attention on the 22nd of December for 66 cents. I think that's reasonable enough a price if you're prepared to build this style of a deck. Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke, it has 7 different variations on it, with 412 currently available. It starts at 2 cents with a price trend of 20 cents, 30-day average price of 22 cents, a 7-day average of 23 cents, and a 1-day average of 2 cents. Someone purchased this on the 2nd of January for 93 cents. I would say that's a little bit steep. I wouldn't be prepared to pay more than about 60 cents just because I don't think it's worth the money. It's not that powerful a card, and it's probably quite easy to get. It's not even really part of any specific deck. I know it can be classed as part of the ninja archetype, but I think barely. Gearfried the Sword Master. This card, there are 7 different reprints on it, with 701 of these available, starting at 2 cents, a price average of 10 cents, 30-day average of 11 cents, a 7-day average of 12 cents, and a 1-day average of 15 cents. Someone purchased this on the 13th of November at 50 cents, which I think is a fair enough price to pay. Armed Samurai Benkei. This card, there are 7 different reprints on it, and it starts at 876 of these, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 17 cents, 30-day average of 15 cents, a 7-day average of 19 cents, and a 1-day average of 12 cents. At its height, it achieved its highest amount on the 8th of January for 50 cents, which is, I think, reasonable considering the style of deck that people tend to run around it. Divine Sword Phoenix Blade is There's about 3 different reprints on it, and it's 976 of these available. It starts at 2 cents, with a price trend of 29 cents, 30-day average of 21 cents, a 7-day average of 28 cents, and a 1-day average of 25 cents. At its most, someone purchased this on the 4th of January for €1.35. If this card does come off the ban list and is as popular as it has been, I could argue for paying that price, and maybe some people are trying to predict the market, which is the only reason I can think for anyone paying anywhere near the odds on that. Otherwise, it's just a bit excessive. It might be just too much to kind of justify for it. Snatch Deal, we've got, like all the other sets, this seems to be one of the most common kind of staple cards in there. There are 15 different variations on this, with 306 of these available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 55 cents, 30-day average price of 53 cents, 7-day average price of 47 cents, and a 1-day average price of 40 cents. Someone purchased this on the 4th of January for €1.50. That's too expensive. You've got so many alternatives, and since this is just a common card, it's not even a higher rarity on it. There is no worth on paying anywhere near that. Mystical Space Typhoon. Oh, there are so many copies of this, I'm actually going to have to search for it. For SD5. That's it. There are 78 different variations on this card, and there are 814 copies of this particular one. It starts at 2 cents with a price trend of 16 cents, a 30-day average of 15 cents, a 7-day average of 19 cents, and a 1-day average of 3 cents. At its height, it's being sold on the 6th of December for 49 cents. I wouldn't even bother getting that. You could probably get 3 copies for that price as like a discount, a massive discount, if that's what you want. It does what lots of different other cards do, destroy spell and trap cards. It's just a quick play version. Giant Trunade is one of those cards which has 26 different reprints on it. There are 488 of these cards available, starting at 2 cents, with an average price trend of 21 cents. The 30-day average is 24 cents, a 7-day average of 35 cents, and a 1-day average of 52 cents. This has achieved at its height on the 5th of December, a price of 64 cents. I'm guessing people are just wanting to buy up a couple of good copies of it, but maybe slightly too high. If it's a single card, I can probably, it's okay, because the seller needs to make some kind of money in there as well. Lightning Blade has 9 variations on it, and there are 784 of these available, starting at 2 cents. Price trend is 4 cents, 30-day average price of 15 cents, 7-day average of 11 cents, and a 1-day average of 15 cents. Someone made a purchase of the 5th of August for 81 cents, which is definitely too expensive. I think because it's quite a generic card, you could probably justify using it, but it just might be a little bit too steep for the time being. It's just not the most reliable of cards. Heavy Storm has 29 different copies of it, and there are 343 of these available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 49 cents. Has a 30-day average price of 40 cents, 7-day average price of 38 cents, and a 1-day average of 88 cents. At its height, someone paid on the 18th of December €1. I think because Heavy Storm is quite common and easy to access, that €1 might be too expensive. Perhaps for a good copy I would be willing to part with that. Reinforcement of the army requires, basically, there's 42 different variations on this available, starting with 1,698 at 2 cents, and a price trend of 17 cents, a 30-day average of 16 cents, 7-day average of 20 cents, and a 1-day average of 7 cents. At its height, it was on the 24th of November at 39 cents, which is arguably okay, and on the 4th of January, because it's specific searcher for the deck and most warrior type decks, it's a stable card, I can justify the pricing on that. The Warrior Returning Alive has 23 different reprints on it and 1,040 of these cards available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 4 cents, 30-day average price of 7 cents, a 7-day average of 5 cents, and a 1-day average of 2 cents. At its most expensive, someone's purchased this on the 13th of July for 30 cents. It's similar to my argument with Reinforcement of the Army. It's fine, it's specific for warrior type archetypes, and therefore I can just justify that as specific archetype recovery. Fusion Sword Murasame Blade is that one. This has 7 different reprints available and 738 on this specific one, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 8 cents, 30-day average of 11 cents, a 7-day average of 11 cents, and a 1-day average of 2 cents. Someone purchased this at its height on the 25th of October for 38 cents. It's a bit too expensive for me, but I can understand if you're running a specific warrior type deck that maybe you would want to be looking around this card. But arguably, it's up to, your pricing strategy and pricing point in that one. I don't think it's just necessarily worth that price. Wicked Breaking Flamberg Bow. There are 5 different reprints on this set, and there are 915 of these cards available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 11 cents, a 30-day average of 8 cents, a 7-day average of 10 cents, and a 1-day average of 2 cents. Someone made a purchase on the 10th of January at 29 cents, which I think is reasonable considering, people need to make money at all sides. Fairy of the Spring has 7 different reprints on it and 1,036 of these cards alone just in this one. There are 2, it starts at 2 cents with a price trend of 7 cents, 30-day average of 7 cents, a 7-day average of 4 cents, and a 1-day average of 2 cents. At its most, it was purchased on the 3rd of November for 45 cents, which I think is okay. It's a reasonable price, even though it is a very niche style of effect. This is not a card I look forward to searching for because of the various number. Okay, so it's actually straight up there. Normally it gets covered with all these Boral Load cards because it has reload in its name, which is the frustration about it. There are 9 variations on this card with 1,825 copies available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 18 cents. There's a 30-day average price of 19 cents, a 7-day average of 14 cents, and a 1-day average of 4 cents. At its height, it was purchased on the 4th of December for 73 cents, which I think is just far too expensive. You can get the equivalents of these cards, and again, like, you've got almost 2,000 there. Assuming for the same kind of, you're looking at over, 10,000 copies of this card. There's no reason to get that. You're looking at closer to about 14,000 copies, assuming that this figure just replicates itself across the other ones. Lightning Vortex has 21 different reprints on it and 613 of these available. It starts at 2 cents with a price trend of 21 cents. 30-day average of 20 cents, a 7-day average of 21 cents, and a 1-day average of 35 cents. At its highest, someone purchased this on the 25th of November for 80 cents. I think it's a little bit too expensive, but maybe if you're looking for specific types of removal, this could be an example of a card you want to look into. Swords of Concealing Light. There are 14 different reprints on this card, and there are 1,064 of these available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 24 cents. The 30-day average price is 21 cents, 7-day average price of 22 cents, and a 1-day average price of 40 cents. Someone purchased this on the 9th of January for 47 cents, which is, I think, okay as a tech card, and it's definitely reasonable. Release Restraint is one of those cards which is very specific to a specific named monster, so I can understand why there are only 5 reprints on it. There are 860 of these cards available, starting at 2 cents, with a price trend of 4 cents. 30-day average price is 6 cents, 7-day average of 5 cents, and a 1-day average of 5 cents. Someone made a purchase on the 6th of October for 20 cents. Yeah, I think that's at most what you could afford to get for it, or get people to be prepared to pay if they're specifically trying to make this Gear 3 the Sword Master type of deck. Call of the Haunted. This card, there are 65 different variations on it, and they have 892 of these available. Starts at 2 cents with a price trend of 9 cents. There's a 30-day average of 8 cents, a 7-day average of 5 cents, and a 1-day average of 10 cents. At its highest, it was purchased on the 25th of November for 90 cents, which is quite expensive. I would not go anywhere near that type of pricing, considering that with 65 of these copies available, that's just too much. You know, if you've effectively got 900 here, you've got almost 6,000 copies of this card available. There is no way near you wanting to run this card. There's nowhere you want to be pricing yourself into that. Magic Jammer, you have 25 different reprints on this, and there are 773 on this card available just in this section. Starting at 2 cents and a price trend of 12 cents, 30-day average price of 12 cents, a 7-day average of 19 cents, and a 1-day average of 6 cents. Its height had a purchase price on the 30th of November for 30 cents. I think that's fine. It's a tech card. It can be useful for any means of doing whatever you need it to, so it's definitely reasonable as a suggestion. Royal Decree is, there are 10 different variations on this card, and there are 454 of these available. It starts at 2 cents with a price trend of 34 cents. 30-day average price of 38 cents, a 7-day average price of 36 cents, and a 1-day average price of 5 cents. At its height, someone purchased this on the 8th of December for €1.24. If they're running a specific type of deck, then I could argue for using this. If not, I think it's still a little bit too steep, but as a tech card, it's always going to be useful somewhere. You know, cards go in and out of fashion. Some people are not always familiar with all the cards. And so, yeah, that's the reason maybe as people forget about the card, it becomes a little bit more favourable and it gets teched in. And this card is Blast with Chain. This has 9 different variations on it, with 754 of these available, starting at 2 cents with a price trend of 15 cents. 30-day average price of 15 cents, a 7-day average price of 26 cents, and a 1-day average price of 24 cents. This at most has a purchase price on the 3rd of January for 43 cents. I don't think that's too bad. It's not too expensive considering, you know, what you're wanting to use it for. This is generally the selling price on cards like this anyway, so yeah, I don't see it as that big of a deal. I really don't see it as an issue, so yeah, I would consider buying it for that type of pricing. We are going to be going into some Master Duel now. As always, I like to go into some of the Master Duels with you guys. Just play a bit, just to experience the game, and as always, it's just consistently part of my live streams. I think it's just a nice way of just enjoying the game. As you can see, I've been doing these type of formats where I do like a structure deck, a market watch for the pricing on them, and then I do some Master Duel gameplay. This, I think, is how I'm structuring some of these live streams, just so that, you know, there is some time that they are going to be, what is it called? A new tournament that's happening for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. It's one of these duelist events, and I am hopefully going to be filming a video for it, maybe tomorrow, I think. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, and that'll be uploaded. And the purpose of that is so you guys get to see, they've got like a new Forbidden Unlimited list, and apparently I think the theme is based on the specific archetype, so you can only use named archetypes. You can't use generic cards from random cards. You have to use specific cards. So if you're using a Destiny Hero deck, you can't use something that's specifically for warrior type monsters, because you've got specific Destiny Hero card support. Same thing with Elemental Heroes, same thing with Heroic Challengers or any of the other named cards. Super heavy. Super heavy samurai support that they've just released back in, I think it's like Yu-Gi-Oh! Up 5 would have been somewhere around 2012, somewhere along those lines. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame that they don't get the support that they kind of deserve, and finally that they're getting enough support, information. I'm going to be looking at the super heavy samurais, the old ones in the past, what the new ones do, and my overview of the archetype as a whole. Hopefully this is actually going to work. It's been quite rainy in this area for a while, so great. So my opponent is also going to rank up if they... I always get nervous when they have the Dragon Maid icon, because I always think that they're going to be running that deck. I always struggle against it. At least we got ourselves into a match. Okay, so this is not the best start. There is something I can do with this deck. It's just going to be a very beat stick type of effect. Okay, so my opponent is running that. Right, there is a few things I can do here, since they're running the Blue Eyes Maiden blah 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 cards. You know what, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to steal their card. I'm going to use this card here. So I get to special summon this card. Come on, let me special summon you. And I'll special summon you there. And then just put you in attack mode. Right, so its effect is going to, okay. Okay, so they've just used their Successor Soul. That for me isn't that big of a deal. I'm not actually that concerned. As much as they think that they've kind of backed me into a corner, they really haven't. Because what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do this. And just special summon this in defense position. Next thing I'm going to do, I could have used its effect, but I don't really want to. I am just going to link summon using this card. I'm going to summon this in I'm going to summon this in the tap position. This Scarecrow. I'm going to use Scarecrow's effect. I am going to discard Benkei. I'm going to resummon the Benkei in defense position. I'm not going to use the effect. I am going to pendulum scale this. I am then going to activate this. And I'm going to place that there. And I'm going to go straight into the battle phase. Now the reason I've done this is because actually that pendulum monster allows me to attack twice. Well, that's annoying. There you go. So, well, I take some damage anyway, so... Yeah, that's kind of annoying, but what can I do? I'm going to have to end my turn there, but... My opponent doesn't really have anything. I've got 1, 2, 3, I've got 5 cards on the field. They're going to get rid of Scarecrow next turn. My opponent has like 3 cards in hand and the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Okay, what are they going to do with that? If they go into the Twin Burst Dragon, then I'm probably going to be a bit damaged. But otherwise I should be okay. Because if they go into the Twin... Okay, so Blue Eyes Tyrant. Not too concerned about Tyrant. Oh yes, I am concerned about Tyrant. It just destroyed me. Right, so there are a couple of things I can do here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to end my turn there. My opponent is going to think I don't have the ability to do anything. And actually, kind of, that's what I want them to think. Is I could have gone into the Brawler, but going into Brawler means that I am going to kind of put myself in a bad position if I don't have anything else to protect myself. I'm going to take this damage, but I'm going to be able to just summon this card. Right, I get to draw into the... okay, so this Piercer isn't going to help me at the moment. I have to go into the other Scarecrow. I'm going to have to use its effect. And I'm going to go into Benkei. I'm going to then set another monster face down, and I will end my turn there. The reason I didn't attack is I'm going to need another monster to kind of deal with that. Otherwise that Tyrant Dragon is just going to keep recovering trap cards. See what's going on here. Oh, there's nothing I can do here. I need a this card is useful, but it's useless. Because I can search into something, but I need... You know what? It might not actually be as hopeless as I think. There is a very specific card that I need, though. Onto this card. And I am going to use its effect. But at least I'm able to do some... Okay, so my opponent sets another card face down and ends their turn. Onto this card. That's going to boost it. And I'm going to hope that he activates it now. Now the thing is, he can activate it one more time, I think. Yeah. So it was just a case of me applying the pressure. I had to do what I needed to. Otherwise he just would have been in too much. So I've gone to... that's frustrating, isn't it? Let's see if this is going to work this time. Can watch anything to do with some of my other